Okay, hey everyone. We're here for the Unit Masters program. This is the fourth cohort we've had. It's a cohort is a 10-week program, and we're on speaker number 6, which is, as you might see there, Anthony Rotondi. We have the same last name. That's not by accident. I've known him since the day I was born. So welcome. And, a lot of people we have, the Unit Masters program is an educational program around sort of the future economy and trends in the future and kind of people. A lot of it is about blockchain technology because Unit, the reason it's called the Unit Masters is Unit.network is a crypto blockchain project that's being built by some of the people on the core team here. But so we've had a lot of crypto oriented speakers and also some others. And this, some people are looking for work in the crypto space. Some people are looking for life lessons, learning from masters. That's why it's called the Masters. So a master, a person that's quite in demand in networking, relationship building, often when people are in transition, that I personally know to be have offered people of all levels, CEOs and students and all kinds of things, all kinds of people. Good advice, and learned a lot from him, is my dad, Tony Rotondi, Anthony Rotondi. So hi, Tony. Welcome to the Unit Masters program.
Joseph.
How you doing?
Fine.
Good. So why don't we start, and anyone who has questions, you want to, along the way, maybe put them in the chat box. We'll get to them a little later, but we'll just start with maybe Tony, if you could tell us kind of your background, how you got to where you are, and things like that. And also, I know you meet with a couple of people every day, and so it's kind of what you would do in a meeting as well. So yeah. Go ahead.
So that's just like we practiced it, Joe. Thank you. And I looked through. I was looking through the people on here and goodness gracious, there are lots of people that I know. And you guys have already heard this story, so bear with me. As Joe says, you don't know really anything about me other than I'm Joe Rotondi's dad, and that's cool in itself. But so let me give you at least the thumbnail of, so you'll know a little bit about more about me, and then perhaps we can get into some other stuff. I live in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area in the U.S. I was working way back, and you can see I'm an old timer. I've been around a long time. Way back, decades ago, I was working for a small to medium-sized financial services company here, headquartered here in the area. And it was a wonderful time. I had a little 2-mile commute, very idyllic setting, etc. And then along came this massive worldwide financial services company headquartered right outside of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, called Fortis. Fortis had a number of subsidiaries around the U.S. And I was just a young professional, but I happened to be at the right place at the right time. And I got responsibilities long before I deserved them. Now, certainly, I wouldn't have thought about that, let alone admit it. Goodness gracious. But that was the case. Instead of my little 2-mile idyllic commute, then I had a trip to the airport every week. Not 5 days a week, but 2, 3, 4 days. And I had responsibilities at our various subsidiaries around the US, 8, 10, 12 of them, depending on the time that we're talking. Our US headquarters was in New York City. Interesting side note, was on the 51st floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. So it shows you how far back it goes. And that was cool going there. Now my company, Fortis, moved out of there in 1997. So they weren't part of 9/11, thank God. But it was cool going there. And and for the most part, the travel was fine. I kind of enjoyed it. But as time went on, and ever increasing responsibilities, so that was all good. Made a lot of mistakes, but still got those increasing responsibilities, which was cool. But as time went on, yeah, the travel became more and more onerous. And of course, the larger the organization and the higher you go in a corporate environment, especially a corporate environment, but in any larger organization, politics takes over, and it becomes increasingly more difficult. As do turf issues. Everybody has their turf issues and wants to maintain their influence and their power. That became more and more difficult. And of course, it taxed the work that you would do, that I would do, on building those relationships, because that was my role, to create, because I came from corporate, and so I had to create relationships and work hard at that. It was, on balance, it was we were very successful. Now, that said, with all of those negatives and the positives, I felt like the stress was getting to me. My last event at Fortis was when I had to close a division that reported to me in another city, Milwaukee. Love those people; they loved me. It was hard. It was hard doing that. Now, I had done it before, but I had never had those kind of relationships. I spent a lot of time in Milwaukee with those people. Now, it was a different time, people. It was the 90s. And, you look back 25 years ago, and it was a whole lot different than it is today. We found jobs for everybody. We had job fairs for competitors, came in and snapped up people. We moved people to oops, I got something else popped up here on my screen.
No, you're good. We can still hear you.
Yeah, okay. We moved people to other subsidiaries. Everybody landed. Everybody was happy. But I decided that it was time. It was time for me to leave the corporate world. And God bless my wife, Pat. She encouraged me, and I decided to retire. How
old were you then?
I'm going to tell you.
Okay,
I was 51, and I don't think Pat had retirement in mind when she was encouraging me, but nevertheless, that's what happened. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was only 51, as Joe points out. And, I felt like I was in my 70s. Here I am now, 25 years later. It's been a great 25-year run. 25 years later, I'm feeling like I'm in my 50s. Not 51 anymore, mind you, and not as young as I felt a year and a half ago, pre-COVID, like most everybody on this podcast would say as well. So, but it's been a great run, 25 years, and I'm feeling in my 50s. You can't beat that. Two giant revelations in retirement. One is that retirement isn't necessarily not working. I know that's a double negative, but you get the idea. It's not necessarily not working. It's doing what you want. It's freedom. It's independence. It's waking up without an alarm clock and sitting around on your dead hind end for extended periods. If that's what you want to do, it's working 60 hours a week, just like the old days. If that's what you want, it's playing golf and tennis and fishing and travel and doing projects and all of that stuff as well. Who knows, you kind of go into retirement. Nobody really knows what it is until you get into it. So that was a giant revelation for me. So from a work standpoint, I've done a lot of work. Over 25 years, you've done a lot. So I've done a lot of higher level consulting, senior level consulting at Fortune 200 companies. Some you'd recognize. I've done, and of course, I've worked a lot with family-owned businesses, entrepreneurial endeavors. I'm on a bunch of advisory boards. Have been for. It doesn't matter what I've known, what I know, I'm still on some advisory boards that, you know, I don't know anything about the business, but somehow they keep me on there. So that's fun, and it keeps my fingers in the pie. So I've done a lot of that over the years, and I've done a lot of temporary management, 3 months to as much as 2.5 years, but I still call that temporary, the 2.5 years. Higher level stuff, family owned businesses, and also all the way up to Fortune 200 companies. So it's from a work standpoint, I've kept myself pretty busy. So that's the first revelation, doing what you want, freedom, independence. The second big revelation has to do with actually with relationships, building, nurturing, growing, renewing old friendships and acquaintances. That's the first thing I did. My first day, I started calling people way back through every part of my life. I went back to grade school. I went back to high school and college, and my Army life, which wasn't long, but nevertheless, I have some great friends there. My corporate, all of my workaday lives, youth coaching that I did with Joe and his buddies. So everybody, you know, anybody I could think of that I had done, that I had a good relationship, a good engagement with, a good experience with, I went back and I seeked them out. And you know, it was fun. Now you have to understand, I didn't call anybody who thought that I wasn't a good guy. No, maybe they thought that, but I didn't know it. But no, not really. It was fun, and they embraced it, and they appreciated the reacquainting, if you will. Some of those people that I did that with are some of my best friends now. So the revelation there was that, you know, this is an asset. These people that I've come to know is an asset, and I can go tap that asset whenever I want, you know, for all kinds of different kinds of things. So during that time, I started volunteering at a nonprofit that specialized in helping people who were in job transition. And, you know, that was fun. I enjoyed that. And then one thing led to another, and people started calling me. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'm flattered. I take it as a compliment. So over these years, it's been on average 5 to 7 people a week. And as Joe says, it's, you know, many of these weeks or many of these days now are 2 a day, but I do cut it off at 5 to 7. I don't get over that anymore. But think about that. I mean, and it blows me away. It blows me away every time I say this, but it's been literally thousands of stories that people have shared with me. Yes, all kinds of C-level people. Yeah, in corporate environments and nonprofits and entrepreneurial endeavors, professional people of all kinds, immigrants, just like my father from Italy, and blue collar workers, just like my dad from Italy. And then not many, but a few, right out of St. Cloud Prison, a state prison here in Minnesota. So it's been a tremendous experience for me, and a privilege, and I'm humbled by it. I really am, that people will share those stories. And I've heard a lot of interesting stories. Yes, you know, people that I come in contact with are typically, you know, people in job transition, or people who are thinking about, dreaming about something else in their lives, thinking about retirement, or in the middle of retirement, and I'm bored, I don't know what to do, and somehow they get my name, and you know, it's and through all of those stories, through all of those conversations, I've formulated a lot of opinions on job search, on networking, transition, job transition, change, relationships, etc. So from
So,
all of that, and sorry,
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just saying. So people come and they want to meet with you, and now they sit down with you, and you kind of tell your backstory. But so yeah, maybe launch into kind of like how you coach them through it, or like what kind of advice you might give them.
So typically, as I say, people are in some kind of change and some kind of transition. And so what we try to do is, obviously listen to the story, exchange stories, which is really, really important. And the first thing that I try to do is because these are awkward situations, the networking inextricably has been connected to unwanted job search. So networking by definition has a negative connotation to it. So it's important, when people sit down with you that to try to make them feel as comfortable as possible, because it's not typically as I say, they're in job transition, so they're coming with their hat in their hand and they're asking for help, and nobody wants to ask for help. Those same people, if you turned it around and said, I need some help from you, they would be, oh my gosh, yes, what can I do for you? But this is a different story, especially when you're in need. So I always tell people, and networking, let's define it. It's all about growing a network, building a network, nurturing that networking, keeping that network, keeping it as fresh as possible. Most people I run into, almost all, have not done a very good job of nurturing that network. And I'd love to hear some of your comments on how you've done with that. Have you maintained good relation? Have you gone back and reacquainted and renewed people that you've had good relationships with, good experiences with, good engagements with over the years, way back to grade school if you can? Now, granted, they're 7-year-old relationships, but nevertheless, you had a good time and experienced some good endeavors. So that's the first thing, is that it's all about that network, and that network is an asset, and you can go and tap that asset whenever you need it. Whenever you need a second opinion on a medical procedure, whenever you need somebody to cut your grass, and everything in between. So it's it's an asset that should be used that way, should be thought of that way. And yes, it's important to be able to use that when you're in some kind of need of in job transition, etc.
So sorry, can I interrupt? Sorry for interrupting. So let's assume I'm sitting. I'm kind of in transition. I sit down with you and I'm thinking, I need a job. I got a real need. I have 2 kids, and I just lost my job, and it's been like 6 months. And somebody told me that everything about networking here, and I'm telling you what I want. I want this kind of a job with this, this level CEO, this industry. What can you do for me? Please help me.
And that's typically how people want to start off, because that's what the experts tell them to do. You've got to know exactly what you want. Now, these are people in transition. Now that Joe has pointed out, these are people who are in the middle and the throes of job transition. So they come because they've had expert advice. And recruiters also are telling them this. You've got to narrow your thinking. You've got to be concise. You've got to know exactly what you want to do, because if you don't know, how's anybody going to help you? Well, I think that's the wrong advice, in my view. Now, here again, these are just my opinions. There's no facts to that. So there are a couple of factors here. One is that most people that I talk to have been heads down for decades, years, doing whatever they've been doing on their job 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Most people have families that they've been taking, that they're involved with, be it immediate families or extended families. They have friends, they have recreation, they have their spiritual life, they have their all of the things going on in their life take up all of the time. So guess what's happened while they've been doing all of that? The world is creating opportunities that they don't even know exist. And you people, through unit and all of the other things you're doing, are a prime example, creating opportunities that people don't even realize are there. Just look back over 5 or 7 or 9 years. Look at all of the innovation and invention and new things that we are now taking for granted that have come about. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So what we tell people is the old cliche, you don't know what you don't know. So one of the mindsets that has to change for you is that you have to go out. We have to go out and narrow that gap of what we don't know, thus expanding our horizons. You see, if you're in complete transition, then you have time during the day. I advocate to people, you got to have a different kind of mindset. People will say, you got to find a job, got kids in college, got financial age. Yes. So that's all good, but that's outside your control. You can't control when a job comes along. You can't control even getting an interview. Once you get it, if you do get an interview though, and you go through that process and you think, I knocked it dead. This is it. They've told me you're our person. Tuesday we'll call you, and then Tuesday comes along and they don't call you, and then Wednesday and there's no call, and Friday you get to the point where it's very frustrating. So you're going to speed them up. Remember, they're working on different priorities than you are, so you're going to speed them up. You call them. Oh yes, George or Frank or Harry or Mary or Sue. Yes. We were going to call you. We went in a different direction. We decided to go inside. We decided to go with somebody with different industry experience. We decided that the COVID came along, so we have a hiring freeze. Stuff that's completely out of your control. And most everybody I talk to who is in this situation, it's a recipe for frustration, but they get frustrated and then more frustrated and then more frustrated. And sometimes it becomes then there's something wrong with me. I don't have enough hair. My mustache is too white. I'm too tall. That's not the case for sure. But and none of that's the case. None of it is. It's just that's out of your control. You can't control when that most people are bridesmaids at least once, silver medalists at least once. I met a guy a couple of months ago who was a silver medalist 10 times. Am I okay on time here, Joe?
I think we need to kind of to maybe just kind of but we are kind of eating up the time. So I know your message, and I know you kind of giving examples, and it's really good. I know where you're going with it, but maybe I could just focus you a little bit. So the people come to you, they're looking for advice on what am I going to do, and you go, and they're feeling a little depressed. They're kind of, I've been looking for a job for 6 months and I can't find anything. And you say, well, what we need to do is change your objective. Give you control over what you're doing, and your objective is not to get a job. It's to find out what's going on in the world and connect with people. And how are you going to find those people? You're going to go all the way back through this asset, this network that you have. So maybe go down that path a little bit.
Okay. Actually, you said that better than I, but yes. So because that objective is outside your control, and we want you to take control. We want you to take control of your own situation. So the mindset, there are 2 or 3 or different aspects to the mindset. One, to a change in the mindset. One is that I need to take control of this. I need to narrow the gap of what I don't know. I need to expand my horizons. Now, that's a very nebulous, vague, ambiguous objective. I understand that, but that's now within my control. That's going to help me feel like I'm accomplishing something. Another piece of the mindset is that since I don't know what I don't know, that's part of the horizons as well, of expanding my network, of interesting people. And so how am I going to go about doing this? Well, I've got a new objective now, expand my horizons. This is a full-time job. That's part of it's not a hobby. It's not something that, you're going to fill in if you have time. No, this is a full-time job. We're going to treat it like a full-time job. And I know that finding that job is that next opportunity is really, really important. But if we trust that if we have this objective that is within our control, expanding our horizons, we put a structure in place, just like we had in our previous role. And what we're going to have in our next role, we put a process in place. We have an accountability. And so we treat this like a real full-time role. So there are 3 legs to effective networking. All right. There are 3 legs to effective networking. We're going to meet with people. That's the process. That's what we're going to do to expand our horizons. But 3 legs to effective networking. That first leg, because I don't know what I don't know, I'm not going to try to figure out what I want to do as the experts are telling me, because I don't know enough. I'm working with limited knowledge, you see. I have to tell me what's available, and then I can formulate much better decisions. So that first leg, I'm going to meet with anybody. I don't care who they are. I'm not going to try to figure out only C-level people or only people in my industry, only people that I think I'm interested in. No, I'm going to meet with anybody. I don't care if you're a prince, a pirate, a pauper, a policeman, a pilot. You get the idea. A philanthropist, a photographer, a pugilist. Give me a poet. I don't care. Why? Because now my objective is I want to meet with interesting people, and everybody is interesting in their own right. Some are more interesting than others, yes, but everybody's interesting in their own right. And I get to listen to their story, and I get to sop up all of what I can from them. So when they ask me, and the question is always put to me when I'm in transition, always the first question is, so what are you looking for? What do you want to do? Well, and I have to have the answer. So I tell them about, this is the industry, this is the company, this is the culture, this is the location. And by the time I'm done with that, I've narrowed their thinking to my thinking. Are you going to say something, Joe?
No, so that's and they're doing that because they want to help you, right? So they're asking, what do you want to do? But it's just because they're,
so they want to narrow they want to narrow their thinking to your thinking, so that they can help you and they can steer you in a direction. Well, once you've narrowed their thinking, you have now taken this very difficult task of going out to meet with people and driving across town to a place you've never been, meet with somebody you don't know, tell your life story to a complete stranger. You've done that, and that's hard work. Now you're not going to get the most out of it that you can, because you've narrowed the other person's thinking. That's not what you want. You want them to tell you their story. You want to share a story. So the answer to that question is, well, I've done a lot of things. I've shared my story with you. Obviously, I've done a lot of things, and I could do a lot of things. And I know that intuitively that they're out there, but I don't know what I don't know, the old cliche. So here's what I'm doing. I'm meeting with interesting people like you. Now you've taken control of the meeting. It's your meeting. It's not their meeting. I hear always people say, well, I don't want to waste anybody's time. By definition, I've agreed to meet with you. Therefore, I've agreed to waste my time. You don't have to worry about me. So
it's not about what you're looking for. It's about, this is what I've done. And maybe you can share your now
Exactly.
what you know what's going on in the world in a way that from your perspective that I don't know. So you can
That's
just take
right.
the information about what I have done and help me with that.
So the better question is, what have you done? Those are facts. Those are facts. And what do you want to do? Well, I'm out exploring and learning. And chances are I'm going to be doing something that's maybe explicitly involved with what I've been doing, but at least tangentially involved with my talents and skills. But I'm exploring, as long as I have time during the day in this full-time job with structure and process and so forth, I'm meeting with anybody who's willing to meet with me. And I'm going back and renewing old friendships and acquaintances, as I said.
So that's
So
leg
that's the
number one.
first leg.
You meet with
That's the
anybody.
first. That's the first leg. Going to meet with anybody, don't care who they are, don't care what they do. Second leg is everybody. I don't care who you are, I don't care what you do. You got to have an accountability. You got to have a key performance indicator that you can judge your success on. We got this nebulous, ambiguous, vague objective of expanding my horizons. Yes, but now we're going to put a process in place where we can put a numerical metric goal in place as well that we're going to judge our success on. And this is a full-time job. We've agreed on that. 2 people a day, 10 people a week, come hell or high water. That's the goal. That's it. That's the objective to satisfy the overall objective. 2 people a day, 10 people a week, come hell or high water. At the end of the week, did I meet with 10? Well, I got 8, pretty good. 8, 80% of the goal. You, the CEO, are not going to be very happy with you, the practitioner, when you get to the end of the week and you've only satisfied 80% of the goal. So it's 10 people a week. If 10 is good, 20 is better. No, that's not true either. When you get to Friday afternoon and you've hit your 9th and 10th, that you're pretty tired. This is a hard job, because every person you meet, even your old friends, every person you meet, you got to be up and charming and smiling and laughing at the other person's jokes, listening, and you got to be telling your story over and over and over again. That's hard work. And then when you're done with me, you go to that next person in the day. What happens? You have to be up and charming and all that same stuff again. That's hard work. And then you have to remember what you learned, which takes me to the third leg. First leg, going to meet with anybody. Second leg, going to have that accountability and put that in place, because it's a full-time job and I'm going to treat it that way. And the third leg is every week is a project. Every week is a project. You start the week off with the same objective. The objective is I'm going to expand my horizons. That's what it is. I'm going to go out and learn. I'm going to expand my knowledge, and by expanding my network of interesting people, thus expanding my knowledge, and thus expanding my horizons. It's a circle, isn't it? Every week being a project. Did I get to at the end of the week? Did I satisfy that objective of expanding my horizons? I did. I learned a lot. Did I meet with 10 people? I did. Okay. So now what's the last phase of any project? It's the post-implementation review, isn't it? It's the post-mortem. Most people don't do this. And thus they lose so much of what they've learned, or what they took in anyway. And because all this effort they put in, they're not getting the most out of it. So at the end of the week, did I meet with 10? I did. And the postmortem is, what did I learn? Who did I meet? What's the most interesting story that I heard? What's the most interesting personal story? What's the most profound issue or thing that I took out of the professional story, et cetera, et cetera. So I can do all of that stuff by myself. I can sit there at the end of the week with a glass of wine and go through all of that, but it's a whole lot more effective in my view, and a whole lot more fun if you're sitting there in an informal setting with that person or two people, no more than two. These are Tony's rules. You come up with your own. And you're reviewing with that person or two what we did this week. Those people know you, they care about you, they know what you're going through, they know that this is an informal session and you're doing it perhaps over a cup of coffee, maybe a glass of wine, maybe a Crown Royal, a scotch. The more scotch you have, of course, the better the conversation goes. We can all agree on that.
Yeah.
So it's tell us. So Joe, tell us the most interesting story that you heard this week. Tell us about each person that you met. Tell us about the professional story, the personal stuff you heard. It's what are you going to take into next week? What are we going to do differently, etc. That's the post-implementation review. So
that's great. That sounds great. So just because we only have about 5 or 7 minutes left, maybe 8 minutes before we break into groups. So people are learning about learning from each other. You're out there learning in the world from your network and connecting with people, 10 people a week. You do the postmortem. So what are the benefits? What's going to happen from that process? Like how do you see what happens?
So what have we done? We put a process in place. We put structure in place. We've put an accountability in place. And we have that objective of expanding ourselves. So what's going to happen from all of that? We have expanded our knowledge and our network of interesting people. We have practiced the discipline of hitting 10 people every week. Practice. LeBron James, greatest basketball player in the world, he practices every day. That's what we're doing here. We're practicing that. The comfort level of meeting people and telling your story. You see, it doesn't matter if Joe and I are comfortable with each other, but when it does matter and you're sitting in front of that decision maker and you really want that opportunity, be it entrepreneurial or corporate or nonprofit, whatever it is, you really want that opportunity, and you're going to be a whole lot more comfortable because you've done it over and over and over and over again. So you take those things out, and then not the least of which is going to fall out of this process, meaningful, challenging opportunities that are going to come to you now. I didn't even know that existed. I could do that, So
because you're not looking for a job. Sorry, because we are kind of short on time. So so you're not looking for a job, but you know that you're going to get a chance to help someone else. You're going to learn about what's going on in the world, and something's going to fall in your lap just through that process. Is it
lots of byproducts? And that's a byproduct. That's a byproduct. The opportunities are going to fall into your lap as a byproduct, just like all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So that's the story.
Great. So that's great. So we're going to go into breakout rooms at some point here. There's a number of questions, but one of the questions is, what would you like us to practice? What exercise would you like us to try out in the breakout rooms? We're going to be with a few people in a breakout room. Yeah, what would you suggest?
And this is fun. But it's hard. I'd love to hear your story. And I'd love to hear where you're from. I'd love to hear about your family. I'd love to hear why you left where you're from to go where you are. I'd love to hear the background that you have, professional background, but it's also personal. That's what relationships are about. So I'd love to hear your story. That's the exercise that I think is the most critical in all of this. So it's not a 20-minute deal. It's not a 20-minute slam, bam, boom, boom, boom. Here's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So, okay. So
it's all about relationships.
Because people become depressed, or lose hope when they're looking for a transaction. They're trying to be transactional, get a job, get the sale or whatever. And then they don't really build the relationship. Once it's over, they're just connecting because it's just to connect. So if I can maybe sum up, it seems like you can, building that network asset is like relationships grow and they compound over time, and now you don't know what's going to come out of it. So you're really making friends more than doing transactions, and whatever transactions will come,
Well, you're doing that
as
for
my
two
product.
reasons. You're doing that for two reasons, Joe. You're doing this. You're cultivating this network of relationships for two major reasons. One is you never know when you're going to need it, and we talked about that before. The other, though, that's just as important, maybe even more important, is you never know when you're going to get a chance to help somebody else, to really make a difference in somebody's life, and you didn't even know you did it. My goodness, is there anything more exhilarating, exciting, and satisfying than that?
So, and for you, how maybe go into just real quick, if we could summarize it. So you did that process. You met with old friends from the '90s, and then it kind of built. And now you have people started offering you opportunities to like, hey, if you open the door, and now you have a bunch of businesses that you represent as a result of that. I don't know if we can do that in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I didn't mention that that one of the things that has fallen out of my networking over these years is that I have a business where I can represent friends of mine who own firms, who offer services, unique services. I think those are the ones that I picked out, and I can go and take that service and knock on other people's doors, and it will always open. The door will always open now, and everybody knows intuitively, at least, that that's the most important part of any deal, of any sale, of any culmination of a deal. You got to get the door open. No matter how good a practitioner you are, if you can't get the door open, then then you're not going to get the result that you want. So it's 18, 19 years now I've been doing that, opening doors and for friends of mine. And I represent 4 or 5 companies in the network, and we're able to open doors. So,
And it just kind of accidentally happened, right? Because
oh yeah,
this
it just
process,
fell into my
as you're
lap
meeting with, yeah.
as a result of this. I don't know how much time we have,
How much time do we have? Let's see. What I can't.
Yeah, maybe it's time to go into the breakout rooms, and we can time for 12 minutes. And in one breakout room, we'll have like 5 to 6 people or 4 to 6 people. And maybe we practice what you just shared with us, Anthony. Everybody can share their story. But just a question for, effective time management, Tony. How does one tell a story in like 90 seconds?
They don't. And that's the issue here. I think if we're talking about relationships, and building the seed of a relationship and then growing it, nurturing it, etc., because you want to build that asset, it's not a slam, bam, boom, 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 boom. It's got to take some time. Yeah.
So what should we do if we have 12 minutes only? What's a good advice you give to us now?
Well, I'd love to hear a 5-minute story. I mean, everybody can't tell their story in 12 minutes, but how long did it take me to tell my story? And Joe was speeding me up, so it took about 15, 20 minutes. And okay, I went on and on and on, but in order for people to get a good understanding, good feel for you, you have to be open and share the story. Everybody has a story. Or you might say, if not, it doesn't have to be a life story, I guess, for this kind of an exercise. It can be an interesting encounter that you had. Maybe you could do that in a shorter period of time. Maida,
a lot of people,
is that creative, Maida?
Because a lot of people, they come into a meeting and they go, okay, I have some objective. And what you're saying is, meeting a person, and that person has all kinds of things behind them, relationships, opinions, ideas that you just have no idea. And that's why you're willing to meet with anybody, because everybody's got those kind of things behind them you can unlock by just getting to know them. Correct.
If you don't do that, you're going to miss out on some really, really, really interesting people. Really interesting people that are going to expand you beyond, just your workaday life. Yeah. And that's what to me, that's more about life than it is about, career and work a day.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing.